Robert Plank Show, episode 37. What is your magic trick? I want to personally welcome you back to the Robert Plank Show. My name is Robert Plank. This is the internet radio program where we talk about internet marketing, webinars, membership sites, list building, copywriting, and all the good stuff that comes along with that. So the first quick thought for today is whatever you're doing out there to build your online business and get this extra free traffic and all this pre-sales material, whatever you want to call it, whether we're talking about podcasts, blog posts, webinar pitches, don't script them. It really drives me up the wall when you hear some of these people who say things like, "Well, I'm going to take your sales letter and I'm going to improve it," or you need to have a stage presentation and I'm going to give you the exact slides to use and I'm going to script out everything you have to say word for word down to the jokes. And I mean, you look at that kind of stuff and it gets back, at least for me, to the 80-20 rule. You can have everything just about right, and it doesn't matter if you have the word right at the 37-minute mark. It doesn't matter if you have a joke right at 16 minutes. And you see some of these people, and I mean, they're just following a system, and the system is good enough, but they get superstitious about it, and they say, well, you have to say these exact 7 things in these exact certain order. And I mean, I can look at a sales letter, and you can probably too, or look at a webinar replay, and you can probably tell, well, maybe if this part was moved to this other area, if the order in this was rearranged, it would be a lot better. And more often than not, it's that people jump the gun on asking for the sale, or they don't ask for the sale, or they're too sheepish, or there's just a few red flags here and there. And it comes down to, well, if you look at a sales letter, right, and they don't follow this sequence of attention, interest, desire, action, and if they ask for the sale right at the beginning, or if they start introducing their offer without even explaining the problem, or if there's too much explaining of the problem and they don't even get to the offer too much, those are the red flags to look out for. And you can look at things like a sales letter and you can scroll down in it and you can say, okay, well, halfway down you said some stuff that just really kind of turned me off and made me quit, right? And so I mean, I'm thinking back to our sales letter for our webinarcrusher.com program, which shows you how to make webinar classes and pitch webinars. And there's one point where it says something like, well, you can have this all done in 3 weeks. And, I mean, technically, yeah, because you could put in 1 hour per week for 3 weeks, but it sounds like, well, geez, I got to put my life on hold for the next 3 weeks. If it's, January 1st, this won't be done until January 21st or February, right? And so we just rearranged that and changed the headline to something else, and we actually were using these things called heat maps, they're kind of good, but it's really dangerous because then you can get too superstitious looking at what you think's working and what's not. But the idea is the same, is that when it comes to any kind of selling, right? When we're talking about a sales letter, which is, if you haven't seen one of these, go to membershipcube.com, membershipcube.com, and this is, well, a long white scrolling piece of paper. This is where we we get someone's attention, introduce a problem like you need to have a membership site, or you're not making money online, or you're losing your customers or losing sales, right? These are all the things I've tried. Now here's my solution. Now let me explain to you the solution, including the modules, the bonuses, all the plugins and things like that, and then let me wrap it all up and then ask for the sale, right? That's AIDA right there. And so you can first of all see, are all these things present? Is there way too much of something like explaining the problem, or way too much of explaining the solution without even identifying the problem? Or are these in the wrong order? Or even if those things are all in place, scroll through and say, is there any point, if I was like this casual viewer and I just got turned off, for example, by mentioning 3 months, or if there was this one section where there was a huge chunk of text and I'm just not going to read it and I'm going to quit. And more often than not, it's just those tiny, tiny little speed bumps that get people to leave and get people not to buy. So we can just clear those out, and then that's all fixed. And I mean, that's basic just selling and going back on what worked and what didn't. Comedians do this with their stand-up routines. They have all this material, right? All these jokes to try out. They tour the country. They try out different jokes. Some of them get more laughs. Some of them get less laughs. Some of them, they just need to change the wording or change the timing or the delivery or add this one detail. And then they say, okay, well, maybe this one joke should go at the beginning, and that transitions to that joke, to that joke, to that joke. And then after they go into like 20, 30, 50 shows, then they have their set that they can just live off for the next 5 years. So you look at that, you look at your presentation in the same way. And even some of these guys, and I've seen some of these guys who present in person at live offline seminars from the stage, and they themselves have had a coach make their slides for them, script everything out, make their jokes for them. And some of these guys, I've seen them deliver the same exact presentation 5 or 10 different times. And the first couple times I was like, well, this is pretty much word for word. But then I noticed, having seen it so many times, that they would change slight little things. Like maybe one time he tried putting more of his own story into it, and another time he put more focus into this live demo. So even these guys who have, all the superstitious in place, then, that's a good starting point for them. And then once they begin to shop around their same stage presentation where they go to a live event, they're usually not paid to attend or not paid to present there, right? They just go there for free, and then the money they make is based off of, they pitch a high ticket offer from the stage, people go and buy it from the back, they split that money with the promoter of the event. I've done this a bunch of times too, and I've tried different things too myself. I've tried, $2,500 packages, $1,000 packages. I've tried passing out my book part of the way through. I've given, presentations during when people are eating lunch. I've done it from where I had 90 minutes to myself, big stage, little stage, all these different things. And I think that we pretty much, for the most part, we have a good guess about what's going to work, what's not going to work. And this still applies. I know, even if you're not a speaker, and I'm not really a speaker, I've just, spoken on maybe 10, 20 stages, so not a lot, but even if you're not a speaker, even if you're the kind of person where you're going to put up even just a short text-based sales letter with a headline and 10 bullet points, that's a good start, right? Even if you're going to do a webinar pitch, which is where you stream this online training live. Someone can hear your voice live. Someone can see your screen live. You don't have to have things scripted out word for word, but you can have some idea of, okay, well, this makes sense if I start off with the 10, 15 minute of, why they should be here, what this is, maybe another 15 minutes of what I'm about to show them, and then 15 minutes or 10 minutes of me showing a demo or showing a magic trick, and in the last 10 minutes, I pitch a product. There we go. Now you can see, and it's kind of interesting too. Even when you're doing something like a webinar, where, at least in person, you can see if people are getting bored or if they're falling asleep, and that's where you might say, let me cut to the chase faster, or let me poll the audience, have them raise their hand, pass out a freebie, bring someone up on stage. I've done all this cool stuff, and even if you're on a webinar online, you can still kind of get an idea, right? So we use this tool called GoToWebinar. You can get a free account by joining our monthly program at webinarcrusher.com, and in this thing called GoToWebinar, you can see how many of your attendees, is what they call them, are looking at your webinar on screen versus if it's behind a different window. And what's even more fun is you can see when the question box, we call it blows up, right? So people can type in a message or a question, and then we are the only ones who see it as the presenters. It's not like they can chat with anyone else on the call. And a lot of people use webinars the wrong way, in that if a question comes in, they say, oh, wait a second, stop the show. Let me answer this one question. Well, no. But on the other hand, we do use those questions as somewhat of a guide. And if we notice that no one's saying anything, well, then maybe we're being a little boring if there's 200 people live on a call, right? But if people are saying all kinds of stuff, or if they're saying, well, this is awesome, or if there's a bunch of people are saying they're confused, maybe we need to slow things down. But that question box is a really good guide about if something's working and something's not. And so it's not so much about scripting this exact thing as it is being somewhat close to the mark and looking at it as more of like a live action sales letter in a way, right? So we still go on that same process. We still get someone's attention, introduce the problem, bring out the solution, and then tell them to buy, but it's just in a slightly different kind of way. And so, we're talking today about what your magic trick is. And so, I've made a lot of different things called information products, and some were hits, some were duds, and some were hits with the wrong crowd. Some were hits with the geeky crowd or the low ticket crowd, and I sold a ton of $10 packages, but then when it came time to make something for $100 or $1,000, then I hardly sold at all. So we need to have something. We need, first of all, whatever kind of product you have, you need to get version 1.0 out there very, very quickly. Whether we're talking about a software, a service, a course, whatever that thing is, you need to get that out there quickly so you can adjust based on the marketplace wants. And so, me and my business partner, Lance Tamashiro, I think I mentioned him just about every episode here, we were just talking the other day about how, well, because first of all, he was one of my students early on, right? And so when he first discovered me and he started buying my courses, buying my plugins, things like that, he went on my blog and I had posted a crazy map of all my upsells. You know what? I'm going to make a note to post this. If I can find my mouse cursor. I'm going to make a note to post this on the same page as this podcast, which you can find by going to robertplank.com/037. That's robertplank.com/0 So he found this crazy map of all these upsells, and he was just like, cool, this is what I want. Even though looking at it now, and you'll see what I mean if you go there, it's just this crazy spider web of stuff. And it's not like these were all planned products. These were all real products, but at that time, I had about 100 different products. And when I say product, I mean this was usually a package of 7 to 10 plugins. That included the plugins themselves, the source code, some written guides on how I made them, and then videos on how they worked. So this wasn't just something I knocked out in an hour. Usually it took me about maybe like 3 to 5 days, putting in maybe an hour or two each day to pump out these products. So these weren't just crappy bullshit products. They were usually about 90 minutes of video, 50 to 80 pages of text, and then 7 to 10 different plugins. Things like adding a pop-up to your site, adding a quiz to your site, adding a geolocator on your site. So if someone comes to your site from Fresno, California, says, "Hey, welcome Fresno visitor," things like that. So I had so many of these products, I was saying, well, there's no way for someone to just buy one. There's no way for them to buy everything I have, or there's no way for someone to say, if I've got $500, let me buy all of the products about how to promote as an affiliate, or I've got $200, let me buy the big package on everything on how to increase my website's conversions. There was no way for someone just to get a bunch of stuff. So I used this crazy diagram to bundle things, and I quickly realized that I was selling what we call a shitload of shit. Okay, so I was selling these packages, and there was just so much to explain that the sales letter was 50, 100 pages long, and then he said, well, it's got these 127 different plugins, it's got this one, it's got this one, it's got that one, and something really weird happens when you start selling a package that has so many different things that you can't even explain it all. Is either someone has to buy it based on either your personality, or they buy it based on saying, well, there's 127 things, there must be one or two that are useful to me. Or what also works against you is, what if someone sees you have this package with 127 plugins and they say, you know what, I'm only going to use 20 of them, so I'm wasting the other 107 plugins I'm about to buy. So that's kind of a double-edged sword, and I mean it's not really, you can't make a lot of sales of something like that unless you can really keep people's attention to read or to listen to the whole entire offer. I mean, if I were to put that in a webinar these days, it would probably take me 2 or 3 hours just to bullet point out and list everything that's in there. And I mean, it's just a weird package, right? I mean, imagine if, and we know what we'll go to as well? We'll go to something like the iPhone, right? Because that's just like the typical easy thing to demonstrate of something that's cool, something that's, it's a smartphone is a luxury item, let's be honest, but it's positioned in a way that, well, it's got your whole life in your hand, you got infinity in your pocket, you can't live without this thing, right? Because, you have this device, it's what, $600, $800, but you do get it on a payment plan. You get it at a discount because you're signing a 2-year contract. And sure, you make phone calls, you do text, you can play games, but then but you can FaceTime with your grandkids across the country, which you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. But you can track your sleep patterns, and you can lose weight, and it changes your whole life otherwise. Or you can use Facebook, and you wouldn't have been able to keep in contact with this and that person. And so that is, the way that they basically sell the sizzle, not the steak. Have you heard of these things called features and benefits? Copywriters like to talk about this, where the features are what it is. And you know what also kind of is disappointing is, after Steve Jobs died and Tim Cook took over Apple, his first few presentations, they call it the keynote, right, at their developer conferences where they would roll out the latest iMac, iPhone, iPad. His first few years of that were just, well, we now are using an 8-core chip. Well, now we changed the thickness from, 200 microns to 180 microns. Well, now we're using extra RAM. And I mean, I guess that kind of worked out with the geeky people. And looking at it now, I guess if they didn't really have any new news to show, well then I guess that's all they had based on marketing. And I mean, they still sold a bunch, but I mean, you compare saying, well, we've now got 16 gigabytes of RAM instead of 12 gigabytes of RAM with, well, here's this thing called Siri, right? You can go, hey Siri, what's your name? And you can do stuff like that.
It's Siri.
Right? You can do like a cool magic trick. Your phone can talk to you. Now, a lot of people are going to buy or upgrade based on that one cool thing. You can say, well, look at this thing, this phone, you can, browse the internet. As far as I know, the BlackBerry kind of did it, but the iPhone was like the first real phone where you could literally pull up a web page and it would look more or less the same as on a computer. On a BlackBerry, it was close but not quite. On Palm Pilots, it looked completely different, and so that was a cool magic trick they could do. They could say, well, look, you can do video calls, you can use your phone as a GPS, a lot of different cool things, and so that's what, and I think when we put a lot of work and effort into stuff, we lose track of the magic trick. We lose track of selling the sizzle, not the steak. I once knew a guy who, I guess he created his own autoresponder service, and the pitch for him doing webinar, he cut it down to 5 hours. It would have been like a 10-hour pitch, but he said, gutting the non-essentials, it would take him 5 hours to explain everything. And I said, you got to get it down to an hour, and even less than that. You got to get it down to more like 20 minutes to explain it, and then 20 minutes, give or take, to show the thing you explained, and then 10 to 15 minutes to tell people to buy and tell them what's in the package and what they'll get. I mean, you can't talk for 5 hours and expect anyone to stay tuned in the whole time. So we need to be more exciting, and we need to think about, well, sure, if we had our own autoresponder, or if we had our own, let's say you hosted a service that hosted membership sites. That'd be kind of a cool little thing, especially if it was priced right, and if it was geared, say, towards the newbie market, and you can make fun of people being scared about, well, web hosting, and I have to, pay for this, and what if my web host goes down? Instead, you click a button. Or what if you said, okay, well, let me show you how in 5 minutes you can click this one button, and now you have a blank membership site. And if you want to find content, luckily we have our library of 250 different niches. You can just click around what you want, and then boom, now the videos are right in there. You click another button, and you can say, okay, this is the price I want to charge, and cool, in 5 minutes you made a whole business. Or you could do a second demo after that and saying, well, do you already have a site set up? Well, no problem. You can just go over here, and here's a site that we've already had self-hosted by us. You can click this one button, and it will migrate all your stuff. Well, cool, now your site is hosted by us, and now it will never go down, and now it's cheaper, and now it will actually grow, and now it's actually better than if you hosted it yourself. That would be a really, really cool magic trick. So, I really, really got tuned into this thing called the magic trick when we were putting out our course called Make a Product. Back then it was version 2.0, and our Make a Product course tells people how to get themselves published on Amazon, how to just speak out a bunch of articles and blog posts so that you're pretty much like the CEO. It's like, like in the stereotypical like 1950s Mad Men kind of thing where you could just, speak into the tape recorder and say whatever you wanted. I'm going to just speak out my book, and then cool, someone else will type it up. Well, now that's the reality on the internet pretty much, because you can speak out what you want, get someone else to type it up, using our system, using our formula for posting the right job, hiring the right people, doing this thing for the editing, all these cool things. And so as a marketer, we can't just say, well, here's the course on how to make some articles. Well, here's the course on how to get some stuff transcribed. We need things to be exciting and fun and sexy. So there's a few ways to do that, but the biggest ones, I guess, are like a huge result or a short amount of time, or even better, a huge result in a short amount of time, right? And so the first iteration of that course flopped. And by the first iteration, I mean the first day or two, and then we adjusted, and then we sold it out. So what we did was I made a video and a web page saying something like, well, check this out. I've had over 3 million words transcribed. And looking at it now, right now it's 4.8 million words. But at the time I said, I've got 3 million words that I've had transcribed. So what's wrong with that? If I say that I've had 3 million words transcribed, first of all, how many words is 3 million, right? I mean, I guess a book is 30,000 words, so that would be 100 books. So where are your 100 books? Or did these all go to courses or to articles or blog posts? I mean, I can't really imagine. I mean, what do 3 million grapes look like? If you piled up 3 million grapes on the ground, would it fill up a whole city? Would it fill up just a big pile? Would it be a whole mountainside? Would it fill up the whole state? I don't know. That's too big of a number. The next problem with that is, well, it's bragging about me. But who cares? What about them? What can they do? And does that mean that now they have to work to get 3 million words to get close to where I'm at? I mean, there's just all these ways we can basically, let's just call it poking a hole in it, right? So that's a really useful tool in your own marketing arsenal. Is if you look at what you have, the first thing, don't let this discourage you. Get something set up. Get a sales letter, opt-in page, and membership site set up right now. We'll show you how to do that inside our membershipcube.com course. And once you have something set up, then you can get your sales letter critique, or even you yourself look at it and try to poke a hole in it. And you can poke a hole in anything, right? So if you have a course, let's say you have a service on hosting a membership site. Well, what are the buts? What are the objections someone's going to have? Well, I don't want to trust someone else to host my stuff. Well, isn't it cheaper just to get it hosted myself? Well, I want to have more control. And these are all valid concerns. And instead of ignoring them, just address them quickly and belittle them and get them out of the way. Not belittle the person, belittle the question, right? So if someone's issue is, well, it's cheaper for me to host it myself, well, then total it up. Total up the cost that it would cost them to get membership software, get web hosting, get, I don't know what else, a domain name, who knows what, but just figure out a way to stack the alternative to look really crappy, but then yours makes more sense, right? Or it's like, what would it cost you in extra money that you've lost to spend 6 months getting a membership site going, right? Or would it cost you if your website went down? All these different things. So you can look at the weaknesses that you would have and otherwise turn them into strengths. So instead of saying 3 million words transcribed or make a product, we tried a bunch of different things. And what was more impressive was saying, well, here's me making an article in 3 minutes. And I've done this in pitches where I've spoken something out from scratch. By the way, this podcast, there's a couple bullet points, but it's not scripted. When I speak out an article, that's not scripted. And then even on some of these calls, I'll even type out an article, and typing it out takes about 5-6 minutes. But on a live call, that will still be short enough an amount of time to keep their attention. And if I explain some of these concepts and I show demo 1, here's me typing out an article, well, that's cool, because the old way, an article took an hour to a day. Now if I use this process, I'm only going to show you part of it because it's on a free call. Now it takes 5-6 minutes. But then even faster, if I go and speak it out, it takes 3 minutes and I'll just speak it right out. Or even if I go to this other site, I can get it done for $5 without even me doing any work. So then if I put $500 in, now I can get 100 articles out and use those as articles, blog posts, autoresponders, reports, books, all that kind of stuff. So instead of selling a shitload of shit, or in having this crazy diagram, or in being a martyr or a victim and talking about all your features, show the magic trick. And I'm also going to post next to this podcast, and if you're not already, at robertplank.com/037, go over there right now. I'm also going to post, there have been some really cool commercials. And I mean, the cell phone companies always have really entertaining commercials, and usually it's, Sprint versus Verizon versus AT&T, maybe a little T-Mobile, but, they're kind of a smaller player, and they will just be downright nasty. And they'll make fun of each other's service, each other's phones. And so there's a couple of them that I want to show you. One is the ad for, I guess, Microsoft. So Siri is the thing I talked to you about before, right? Where you can hit the button and you can talk to Siri, right? And you can do stuff like that. And you can say, give me directions to Starbucks. You can say, call such and such person. And that's like the voice control for your phone or your iPad, right? And then Android has one called Google Now, I think. And then Microsoft phones have one called Cortana. And I'm going to post one by Microsoft where they say, like, Siri's like, oh, I don't know how to do that feature. And Cortana's like, I can do that. And it does things like if you have an appointment to go somewhere and there's traffic between now and the time you're supposed to leave, then it says, oh, there's traffic, you better like head out the door early. Or it does different things, like they'll say, will remind me when such and such person calls me to tell them happy birthday or happy anniversary, right? And then they can set that alert, and when the phone rings, this thing pops up and says, oh, don't forget to remind them. And you know what, too? Maybe by the time you listen to this, maybe they'll have added that. But just think about that magic trick. You can just say, well, look, with a Windows phone, you can just say, cool, remind me of this. It's almost like magic. So you need to have something where it's like magic. I mean, the commercials for the iPad, if you've seen some of these 30-second spots, they'll just like have an iPad and someone will freaking play the piano on an iPad. Or with the Amazon phone, I guess that phone didn't work out so well, but they had a phone where I guess it was like holographic, so you can watch movies that seem to like float over the phone. You can tilt it. That's a cool little magic trick. And so, as far as this works in whatever niche you're in internet marketing, you need to figure out, well, what's the hard way of doing this, of solving this problem of doing a webinar, doing a membership site, cloning a website, setting up your web presence, any of those things. What's the way that will take an hour to 6 months? And explain that. That's the first chunk of your webinar pitch. But then if you can show just the coolest thing, and you can show all these things that would have taken 6 months done in 30 seconds or done in 5 minutes or less, that is your magic trick. And I mean, you might have to try a few things. Like I was once on a webinar where someone was selling some WordPress themes. Right? So we use a tool called WordPress to set up our sites, just point and click, and we can make a blog, a membership site, a sales letter, an opt-in page, any kind of website we want. And someone was saying, well, look at this theme. You can go to this box and you can put in a custom title and you can put this in. And then when I load the page, look, the title's right there. That's not a very impressive magic trick, right? Or someone says, well, look, you can show this way on a computer screen, but then look, it also appears on a tablet or on a smartphone. That's not really as cool of a magic trick. But have you seen there's some of these themes, for example, for local businesses, right? And some of these themes actually have some pretty cool stuff built in. So then you can say, you can go to a local business, you can go to your local small-timey mom-and-pop Italian restaurant, you can say, I want to make a website for you, and your secret weapon is this one WordPress theme. And you can show in your demo, you can say, well, look, you can click a button and it adds the hours of the location. You can drop in photos. It'll add the directions on a map to the location. You can do this and put in the most popular menu items. You can drop this in and add online ordering. You can drop this in and add online reservations. And if that's all something built in, now that is freaking cool, because that's you showing me something that I didn't know was possible, or if it was possible, would take 6 months of custom programming, but now it's built in all to this theme. So think about that today. What's your magic trick when it comes to your sales letter, and especially your webinar pitch, if you're doing a video sales letter or a podcast? I mean, like we have our backup creator pitch. And I mean, so many of our pitch involves WordPress cloning, but that's just the software we have. But we'll say for backup creator, look at this huge crazy site. I'm going to back it up. I'm going to make a copy of it. Cool. Now we have a second site just like that, and we can do these things with it. When we have our membership course, I say, well, when you make a membership site, don't you have to do all these different steps and install all these different plugins and set all these different settings? It takes like 6 days or a month or longer, right? But what if we said, you're going to grab this clone, install it, and poof, now you have a website, you have the theme, you have the plugins, you have the membership software, you have the add-ons like our WP Notepad, WP Konaki, WP Drip plugins, and all these cool things. That is a fun magic trick That's something that we can explain in, 5 or 10 minutes. And once again, the formula we use for a pitch webinar, because you don't have to have you don't have to have 50 things in place. You just have to have the right components, right? Your AIDA, make sure not to have too much of one or the other. You need to have it in the right order, and then remove the bottlenecks in between, so that we start off explaining why we're talking about this, what the problem is, what the hurt is, what the alternatives are. These are things I've tried. They didn't work, but here's what you should do. Now that I've explained what you should do, well, that's kind of the hard way. Let me show you the really easy way. That is the demo. That is the magic trick. That is me clicking on that clone button. That is me, talking into Siri, doing this and that. That is me playing the piano on the iPad. And then once you've seen that cool magic trick, you say, wouldn't you like to have this? And that's something, well, that's a whole other podcast probably, but early on when we would sell these courses, we had difficulty between that transition from teaching to pitching, right? 45 minutes of teaching, 15 minutes to the end of pitching. If we explain, well, here's what you should do in making a membership site, right? Here's what you should do making a book, but then buy my videos on how to do it. That's okay, but if you demonstrate your system, your checklist, or even better, if you have it, your plugin or your software, then it makes perfect sense to say, here's all the cool things my plugin does. Now, I would be a total jerk if I didn't show you how to then buy this. I would just be leaving you hanging, right? If I showed you how to use this plugin, but didn't tell you how to get it or show you how to get it, then this whole hour was a waste, because, well, what's the point of me showing you the software if you can't get it, right? So you show this cool magic trick, and then you tell them how to get it. So think about that. What is your magic trick? And don't script your podcasts and blog posts and webinar pitches. Just have your talking points, your outline, your slides, and use that as a guide to show off something cool in an hour or less total, so that you can have this really slick sales pitch, so that if it came time and if you had to make a video sales letter, it was under 5 minutes, not 30 minutes, right? Because if you think about it, even though your webinar is an hour long, it's all based around this magic trick, which hopefully is just 5 to 10 minutes. And if you were having a video sales letter with some, and you had some quick cuts, you could easily compress it into just a few minutes. For our backup creator sales letter video, we say, here's a WordPress site, I'm going to go here, I'm going to back it up, I'm going to go here, I'm going to restore it. That's all people need to know. You don't have to go for 5 hours when 5 minutes will do just fine. So this has been Robert Plank in the Robert Plank Show. Think about that today. What is your magic trick? We'll talk to you again very, very soon. Go visit us at membershipcube.com. Make sure to rate us in iTunes. And you know what? I can't remember the last time we read off names on iTunes, but what I want you to do is go to robertplankshow.com/ITUNES and and if you click on to leave us a rating, that's fine, but I would really like it if you just wrote one sentence and leave us a review. So you can go to robertplankshow.com/iTunes. There's a button that says open in iTunes, then there's a tab for ratings and reviews, and you can leave us a 5-star rating or whatever rating you like. But if you want me to read off your name, just write one sentence telling us even just the podcast is great, what you like. And if you leave your real first and last name, then I'll actually be able to read off your first and last name and not a username like DeathBeast69, right? So here I'm going to read off some names: Ray Edwards, Tudor1235, Annette B, James Lara, Tiff1, Janae Smith, Kaplan Diego, Michael Sheen, Art Jackson, Eileen B, Attack Crow, Jim Galliano, Rick Robertson Van Horn, Doc Murdoch, Barry McKillop, Clark Faint, Steve Miller, Insight GM, Tyrone Ratcliffe, B. Dempsey, and Rick Butts. And I think I've read off some of these in a past episode, but now we're for sure caught up. So just go ahead to robertplankshow.com/iTunes and rate us, but also click to write a review and leave your first or your real first and last name so that I can read off your name on the air and give you just a little bit of a shout out there. So this has been the Robert Plank Show, episode 37. What is your magic trick? Looking forward to hearing your feedback and seeing your ratings and reviews on iTunes. I'm Robert Plank. Have a great day and a great week, and thank you.
Membership Cube will take you where no other membership site could hope to. Membership Cube will place you far ahead of the others, because we dumb it right down. We get rid of the access to your site 24 hours a day. Exclusive access to special software and plugins. Membership Q will take you where no other membership site could hope to. We practice what we preach, 'cause we've used all the techniques. So place your order today. You'll get your money back guarantee. Membership Cube is guaranteed.